Sagittarius. This person's plans involve you, and you have no idea. Sagittarius, lately something in your energy field has felt unsettled, hasn't it? Perhaps you've sensed quiet eyes following your movements, conversations that shift tone the moment you walk in, or an intuition whispering that things aren't quite as spontaneous as they appear. It isn't paranoia. It's perception, the kind you can't explain but can't dismiss either. The truth is, someone close to you has been making plans that revolve around you, and you have no idea how deep those plans go. You've always been the wanderer, the seeker, the soul who moves freely and believes in the best of others. But this very openness, your generosity, your curiosity, your trust, can sometimes make you a constellation others try to navigate for their own gain. There is someone who has studied your light carefully. They've observed your rhythms, your ambitions, your kindness, and they are building something that places you at the very center. A design that looks like destiny on the surface, but hides layers of motive beneath. This is not to alarm you, Sagittarius. It's to awaken you. The universe is revealing the subtle choreography behind certain coincidences in your life, asking you to step out of naivety and into awareness. Because the next chapter of your story requires discernment, not suspicion but clear vision. And once you see what's really unfolding, you'll never be played as a pawn again. If these words stir a quiet knowing within you, take a moment, like, share and subscribe to Zodiac Wisdom, where every message is a mirror guiding you back to your own truth. Gate 1: The Hidden Architect. How someone is quietly shaping your path. Sagittarius, your story has always been one of movement, of trusting the wind, following intuition, and believing that honesty and good intent protect you from harm. But lately the wind around you feels different, doesn't it? As though invisible currents are redirecting your course not by chance but by design. Somewhere within your close circle, there is someone observing you more closely than you realize. They are watching not out of idle curiosity but calculation, quietly shaping circumstances, decisions, and opportunities so that their plans unfold with you at the center. This isn't the kind of control that announces itself. It's subtle, sophisticated, nearly invisible. It looks like encouragement, sounds like care, feels like synchronicity, yet behind it lies strategy. Someone who understands how your heart moves and uses that knowledge to guide you where they want you to go. They've watched how your eyes light up when you speak of your dreams, how easily you trust people who seem sincere, how you interpret kindness as loyalty. They've mapped your enthusiasm, your openness, your hunger for purpose. And now they're using that very map to construct something that depends on your participation. You might already sense it. The way certain doors seem to open with suspicious ease. The way people you barely know appear at the right time, saying all the right words. The conversations that circle back to the same topics, steering your thoughts without you realizing. These are not random. They're part of a choreography that has been unfolding around you for some time. And the reason you haven't noticed is that it's been disguised as destiny. A reflection of your own wishes, mirrored so convincingly that it feels natural to follow. Sagittarius, your energy is magnetic. You carry light, and light always draws attention. But sometimes it also draws architects of shadow, those who build their own ambitions using your fire as the foundation. It could be someone in your personal sphere, a partner whose vision of the future quietly replaces your own. It could be a colleague, weaving opportunities that appear mutually beneficial, but subtly position you to serve their agenda. It might even be a family member whose love borders on control, convinced they know what's best for your path. The unsettling truth is that you may have already become a piece in their design. Certain compliments, invitations, introductions, all crafted with intention. You've been given roles and scenes you didn't know were scripted. And while you believed you were acting out of freedom, your steps were quietly directed by unseen hands. But this isn't a story of victimhood, Sagittarius. It's a story of awakening. You are not powerless in this revelation. You are powerful because you are beginning to see. Awareness is liberation. The moment you recognize the patterns, the illusion collapses. The puppeteer loses control when the puppet realizes it has strings. And you, my dear Sagittarius, were never meant to be anyone's puppet. You were born to write your own mythology. The person behind these plans is clever because they've studied your psychology deeply. They know your idealism makes you want to believe in people's goodness. They know your faith in the universe makes you interpret manipulation as divine timing. They know your empathy makes you excuse behavior that doesn't feel right because you always assume good intent. They are betting on your light to blind you. But what they've forgotten is that Sagittarian light isn't naive, it's prophetic. And that light is now turning inward, revealing every hidden corner. You may begin to notice the inconsistencies, small details that don't align, conversations that replay in your memory with new meaning. The more you pay attention, the clearer the design becomes. And with each realization, you reclaim a piece of your sovereignty. The universe isn't showing you this to make you fearful. It's preparing you to reclaim authorship of your life. Here's what's essential to remember. Not every plan made around you is malicious. Sometimes people manipulate out of love, fear, or insecurity. They believe they are protecting you from your own impulses, guiding you toward what they think is right. But love that controls is not love. It's fear dressed in devotion. And even well-intentioned manipulation robs you of the sacred freedom to choose your own truth. The revelation will come in layers. At first, you might feel denial. No, they wouldn't do that. Then anger. How dare they? Then confusion. What was real? But beneath all that, clarity will rise, not cold but calm. The kind that doesn't need confrontation to confirm what it already knows. Because the real power lies not in exposing them, but in evolving beyond their influence. Sagittarius, this awakening will test your pride. You've always seen yourself as independent, untamed, no one's pawn. To realize you've been moved by invisible hands may sting your ego. But remember, even the wisest souls can be misled when love or admiration are involved. This moment isn't about shame. It's about sharpening your discernment. You can't protect your light by dimming it. Only by learning who truly deserves to stand near it. In the days ahead, practice quiet observation. Notice who grows uncomfortable when you assert your boundaries. Who changes tone when you stop oversharing. Who retreats when you stop seeking their approval. Those reactions will tell you everything you need to know. When you stop feeding manipulation, it starves. When you stop explaining your intuition, it strengthens. You were chosen for this revelation because your soul is ready to evolve from trusting blindly to trusting wisely. There's a vast difference. Blind trust gives away power. Wise trust recognizes energy. The universe is not asking you to close your heart, only to give it eyes. Because once you see clearly, no one can script your story again. Gate 2: The psychology of manipulation. Turning awareness into power. Sagittarius, the universe is not exposing hidden plans to punish you. It's elevating you. You are being invited to study the psychology of influence. Not to live in suspicion, but to master awareness. Because your light attracts both genuine hearts and hidden agendas, and wisdom is the filter that decides who gets to stay near it. Let's talk about manipulation, not the obvious kind that shouts, but the quiet kind that smiles. The kind that flatters you, aligns with your vision, and makes you feel seen, while subtly steering you toward outcomes that benefit someone else. This is the realm of emotional strategy, where words become instruments, gestures become cues, and energy becomes persuasion. Sagittarius, someone has been studying your language. Not your words, but your patterns. They've learned that you respond beautifully to belief. Compliment your intelligence, your optimism, your potential. And your Sagittarian heart opens wide, ready to give, to collaborate, to trust. They know that your greatest motivator is purpose. That if they can make you feel part of something meaningful, you'll commit fully. They've mapped your enthusiasm, discovered how easily inspiration becomes loyalty in your world. They've learned to mirror your ideals, to say the right things about freedom, truth, destiny, until you see them as a fellow traveler rather than a strategist. This is not to make you cynical. It's to remind you that discernment is sacred. The Sagittarius soul often believes that sincerity can be felt, that your intuition can always spot falseness. And while that's often true, it's less reliable when emotion gets involved. Your empathy clouds your radar. You forgive too quickly. You want to believe that people mean well, that the world mirrors your own honesty. But not everyone does. Some people study kindness the way others study strategy. They observe, adapt, and manipulate with precision, not malice but mastery. The truth, Sagittarius, is that you've been both student and teacher in this experience. This person has been learning your emotional map, but you, too, are being trained by the universe to recognize manipulation at its roots. To see how flattery can be used as a leash, how sympathy can become control, How gentle persuasion can reshape decisions. You are being upgraded from intuitive to intentional, from believer to observer. In the days ahead, begin watching dynamics through a new lens. Notice who keeps offering help you didn't ask for, and what they gain in return. Notice whose questions dig deeper than necessary, cloaked as concern. Notice whose timing always coincides with your moments of doubt. These patterns are not random. Manipulators sense emotional vulnerability like heat, and they move toward it, not to heal it but to harness it. But here's the empowering truth. The moment you see manipulation, it loses power. The spell breaks. What once felt like connection begins to feel like choreography, and you can step out of the dance whenever you choose. You don't need confrontation or revenge. Awareness is enough. Once you know the rhythm, you can decide when to stop moving to it. Let's talk about the deeper reason this is happening. Sagittarius, your life is about truth. The unfiltered, expansive kind that burns illusion to ash. This situation is a spiritual training ground, teaching you the difference between intuition and projection. Intuition whispers, something feels off. Projection says, I must be overreacting. For years, you've dismissed subtle warnings because you didn't want to seem paranoid or mistrustful. But this chapter is showing you that self-trust isn't paranoia. It's protection. The universe isn't turning you into someone skeptical. It's evolving you into someone sovereign. You can still love deeply, but now you'll love with eyes open. You can still help others, but without being recruited into their hidden agendas. You can still collaborate, but from awareness, not assumption. Awareness doesn't close your heart. It guards your freedom. Sagittarius, manipulation always relies on two things: your belief in appearances and your fear of being wrong. Once you release those, no one can touch your peace. It's okay to pause before saying yes. It's okay to question motives even when gestures look kind. You owe no one blind trust. What you owe yourself is clarity. In the coming weeks, the truth will reveal itself in unmistakable ways. You may overhear something, notice an inconsistency, or simply feel the veil lifting. When it happens, don't rush to expose or react. Instead, observe. Collect understanding like light through glass. Because true power lies in knowledge calmly held, not emotions wildly expressed. And as you observe, you'll start seeing how your own patterns contributed to this. How your need to be understood made you overshare. How your generosity made you overextend. How your optimism made you overlook small red flags. There is no shame in this, only awakening. You are now stepping into a wiser version of yourself. One who can be open-hearted and discerning, giving and grounded. Sagittarius, manipulation loses its power the moment you start choosing your responses consciously. When you answer a question with a question. When you smile and change the subject. When you withhold your plans and simply observe who gets uncomfortable. These are not acts of deception, they are acts of self-respect. You are not playing their game. You're refusing to be played. Remember, the universe isn't asking you to fight shadows. It's teaching you to see through them. Awareness is light, and once the light is on, the shadows cannot stay. This is how you reclaim power, not through control but through clarity. Soon you'll see that this experience was never about betrayal, but initiation. The universe needed you to witness how subtle control works so that your leadership, your influence, your voice can never be used against you again. You're being trained to read energy, to decode intent, to sense truth before words even form. That's the gift hidden in this lesson. So don't curse the manipulator. Thank them silently. They have revealed to you the sacred architecture of human motive. And now you'll walk through life with vision that can't be fooled. Sagittarius, you are evolving from believer to knower. From inspiration to illumination. And no one who once thought they could use your light will ever find the same access again. Gate 3, the revelation and reclamation. Seeing the truth and taking back control. Sagittarius, every awakening begins as a disturbance. The uneasy sense that something isn't adding up. You've felt it in glances that linger too long, in coincidences that start to look like patterns, in words that feel rehearsed instead of real. The universe is no longer whispering. It's revealing. And what it's showing you now is both painful and liberating. Someone's plans have involved you all along, and their blueprint was far more intricate than you could have imagined. When this realization hits, it will not arrive with rage, but with silence. A deep, echoing quiet that comes from shock. You will replay moments, conversations, decisions, and see how carefully they were arranged. The lunches that felt spontaneous, the opportunities that appeared meant to be, the emotional pushes and pulls that subtly shaped your direction. They weren't random. They were constructed. And suddenly, what once looked like alignment begins to resemble orchestration. At first, disbelief will wrestle with clarity. No, they wouldn't do that. They care about me. But as your intuition lines up the evidence, denial will crumble. Sagittarius, you'll feel both heartbreak and empowerment. Heartbreak that your openness was misused. Empowerment that you finally see. This is the paradox of revelation. It hurts because it's honest, but it heals because it's real. And in that clarity, you'll remember who you are. The archer. The one who doesn't stay trapped in confusion for long. You'll lift your bow again, but this time you'll aim not at others, you'll aim at freedom. The hardest part of this revelation will not be understanding what they did. It will be realizing how long they've been doing it. How many choices you made thinking they were yours. How much of your story someone else helped write without your permission. That awareness can sting. It strikes at your independence, your pride. You, Sagittarius, who values freedom more than anything, may feel violated by the realization that your autonomy was quietly rewritten. But let this pain transform you, not harden you. Let it remind you that the only power manipulation ever truly has is the one we unknowingly hand over. Now that you see, you can take it back. And reclaiming power doesn't require chaos or confrontation. It requires stillness, the kind that unnerves those who once believed they could control you. When you stop reacting, when you observe instead of explain, when you choose silence over performance, their influence collapses. They rely on your predictability, your fiery responses, your honest heart. But when you become intentional, they lose their map. This is your turning point, the moment when observation becomes strategy. Sagittarius, start practicing the art of controlled awareness. Watch what they reveal when you stop feeding them information. Notice how quickly they shift when you set boundaries. Manipulation is allergic to clarity. It thrives only in confusion. Once you speak directly, once you no longer respond to bait, the dynamic changes. You will feel it, the invisible threads loosening one by one. You may not need to expose them publicly. Sometimes the best revenge is evolution. The more grounded you become, the more their strategy unravels. Their control depended on the version of you that needed validation, not the version that knows her worth. Their power existed only in your unawareness. The moment awareness arrives, they vanish from the throne they never truly owned. And when that moment comes, the full unveiling, you will feel a strange mix of grief and relief. Grief for the time you lost, the trust betrayed, the innocence broken. Relief that the illusion is finally over. Allow yourself to feel both. You cannot heal what you refuse to feel. But don't linger in resentment. Don't waste your energy trying to understand their motives. Whether they acted from ambition, fear, or obsession, their choices are reflections of them, not you. What matters now is that you've reclaimed your script. Sagittarius, this revelation will also illuminate something deeper. The parts of yourself that allowed manipulation to thrive. You'll recognize how your desire to believe in the good made you overlook the gray. How your compassion made you vulnerable to narratives of need. How your loyalty blinded you to imbalance. These aren't flaws, they're sacred traits, they just need boundaries. The goal isn't to distrust others. It's to trust yourself more. Begin practicing radical self-reference. Before accepting advice, ask, does this align with my inner truth? Before saying yes, ask, do I truly want this or am I trying to please someone? Before explaining yourself, ask, why do I feel the need to justify my intuition? These simple acts pull you back into sovereignty. You no longer need external validation to confirm what your soul already knows. And here's something miraculous. The same sensitivity that made you susceptible to manipulation will now make you immune to it. Once awareness anchors in you, your intuition becomes surgical. You'll sense hidden motives instantly. You'll read the silence between sentences. You'll feel the energy shift before the words change. That's the alchemy of awakening. Your former weakness transforms into wisdom. In the weeks following this realization, don't rush to cut people out impulsively. Move strategically. Step back first. Observe how they behave when you stop performing your old roles. Do they grow anxious, defensive, or do they vanish quietly because the game no longer works? The truth always reveals itself when you stop feeding illusion. Eventually, you will reach the most liberating part of this process, detachment. Not coldness but neutrality. When you can see the manipulation clearly without emotional charge, you have truly won. You are no longer dancing to anyone else's rhythm. You are walking to your own. And that walk will feel different. Lighter, truer, sovereign. The revelation will not just change how you see them, it will change how you see yourself. You will realize that your fire is sacred, not to be loaned to those who would use it to build their own shadows. You will remember that your destiny was never meant to be co-authored by secret agendas. You will understand that freedom isn't something you claim once. It's something you maintain daily, through awareness, boundaries, and truth. When the last piece of illusion falls, you'll take a deep breath and whisper to yourself, I see now. That simple statement will carry lifetimes of wisdom. Because once Sagittarius sees, they cannot unsee. And from that moment forward, you'll never again confuse control for care, manipulation for guidance, or attention for love. You'll move through life not with suspicion, but with serene knowing. The kind that no one can fake. The light of truth has entered, and there is no returning to sleep. What was hidden has been revealed, and what was used against you will now serve you. Because awareness once born becomes protection. Gate 4, the empowered archer. Setting boundaries and reclaiming direction. Sagittarius, you've always believed freedom meant movement, the ability to go, to explore, to choose without limits. But after what you've seen, you now understand that true freedom isn't just about where you can go. It's about who has access to your energy while you get there. Awareness has changed your orbit. You are no longer the same soul who trusted blindly, hoping the universe would protect you from every shadow. Now you've become your own guardian, your own compass, your own boundary. What comes next isn't revenge, it's recalibration. The time for outrage has passed. The time for sovereignty begins. This is the moment when the archer steadies their hand, narrows their focus, and decides exactly where to aim next. Not with haste but with mastery. Because the purpose of this revelation was never to break your faith in others. It was to awaken your faith in yourself. You've learned that not everyone who walks beside you is walking for you. That some people admire your light because it exposes what they lack. That others cloak control and concern using affection as currency. But rather than grow bitter, you are learning discernment. A wisdom that knows when to open the gates and when to keep them closed. Sagittarius, this is what mature fire looks like. It warms, not burns. It illuminates, not blinds. Boundaries for you are not walls. They're sacred architecture. They protect the temple of your energy. You've realized that saying no doesn't make you unkind. It makes you clear. That not explaining your every decision isn't secrecy. It's self-respect. You no longer feel the need to overgive, to prove your intentions, to rescue anyone who mistakes your generosity for obligation. You're beginning to understand that love given without boundaries eventually becomes depletion. And you are no longer willing to run empty for those who only take. When Sagittarius reclaims direction, the shift is cosmic. You stop chasing alignment and start creating it. You stop asking, what do they want from me? And start asking, what do I truly want for myself? This subtle change rearranges everything. Your relationships, your work, even your inner peace. People who once felt essential may fade into the background, and that's not loss, that's leveling. Because as your vibration rises, anything built on dependency or illusion cannot hold. This person, the one whose plans once involved you, will feel the difference. They'll sense that their influence no longer lands. They may test your boundaries, attempt to re-enter through flattery or guilt. But this time you won't flinch. You'll recognize the pattern before it begins. You'll see the intention behind the words. And you'll respond with silence, or a calm truth that needs no defense. Because the most powerful reaction to manipulation is no reaction at all. Your silence will speak volumes. It will say, I see you and I choose me. And that choice, to choose yourself without apology, is the moment the universe shifts in your favor. Because energy respects clarity. Once you stop participating in dynamics that drain you, everything that truly belongs to you begins to arrive. Opportunities grounded in authenticity. Relationships rooted in mutual respect. Creativity that flows without interference. Peace that doesn't depend on permission. This is how Sagittarius rises. Not with noise but with precision. You don't announce your evolution. You embody it. You become the archer who doesn't need to prove the aim, because the results speak. You'll notice that even your aura feels different, calmer, yet more commanding. You no longer have to seek validation, it seeks you. People will feel your steadiness and trust it, not because you demand it, but because it's undeniable. But let's speak honestly. This empowerment will not always feel easy. Boundaries require consistency. You'll be tested by familiar patterns disguised as new chances. You'll be tempted to doubt your intuition when others play innocent. But the key is to remember, awareness doesn't mean paranoia. You're not suspicious, you're awake. You're not hardened, you're wise. You're not detached, you're discerning. To sustain this new strength, you'll need rituals that anchor you in self-trust. Morning moments of stillness to check your alignment. Writing to process truth before you speak it. Taking solitude as nourishment, not isolation. Sagittarius thrives when freedom is balanced with reflection. When the arrow is drawn back just long enough to aim with clarity before release. And here's the most beautiful part. This awakening will not close your heart. It will open it wider, but this time with wisdom. You'll realize that vulnerability is not the same as exposure. It's the courage to show your truth while knowing exactly who deserves access to it. You'll attract people who meet you at this frequency. Souls who don't need to control your fire, only to walk beside it. As you move forward, remember that every manipulation revealed was also a mirror. It showed you where you gave too much, where you dimmed your instincts, where you outsourced your authority. You're no longer that person. You are the archer who's learned to stand alone if necessary, yet never lonely, because you've discovered that solitude is not emptiness, it's clarity. Sagittarius, you've turned your awareness into armor, your boundaries into art, your truth into direction. The plans that once centered on you have dissolved, because your energy no longer sustains what doesn't align. What remains is sovereignty, the sacred kind that doesn't isolate but liberates. You will look back on this season not as betrayal, but as refinement. The universe used another shadow to sharpen your light. Now you walk not as the hunted, but as the hunter of truth, steady, aware, unafraid. Your intuition has become your compass, your peace your protection, your discernment your power. You are no longer being written into someone else's plan. You are writing your own one page, one arrow, one truth at a time. And this time, Sagittarius, every word is yours. Conclusion, the moment of clarity. Sagittarius, every soul's awakening carries a moment when the noise fades and only truth remains. That is where you stand now, between the echo of what was and the quiet strength of what is. You've seen the hidden threads that once pulled at your choices, the invisible hands that tried to guide your direction, and instead of collapsing, you've risen into sovereignty. This revelation was never meant to make you bitter. It was meant to make you aware. Awareness is love in its highest form, the kind that no longer confuses control for care, the kind that can love deeply without losing itself. You now understand that trust isn't a gift to be handed out freely. It's a bond that must be earned through truth. And in that knowing, you've reclaimed something sacred, your permission to choose who sits at your fire. As October closes, take a quiet breath and bless the lesson for what it gave you. The person whose plans once revolved around you has unknowingly become your greatest teacher, not of deceit, but of discernment. They showed you where your light was unguarded, and now it shines wiser, steadier, untouchable. You are not suspicious. You are simply awake. You are not guarded. You are simply grounded. From this point forward, you walk differently. You move with intention. You listen not just with your ears but with your intuition. You share only with those who reciprocate with honesty. You protect your energy as a sacred resource because it is. Sagittarius, your life is your story, not a script in someone else's play. You've stepped off their stage and built your own horizon. From here, every step, every decision, every connection will reflect the truth of who you are, not the projection of what someone wants you to be. That is freedom, the real kind. If this message resonated, share it to awaken others walking through their own illusions. Like, subscribe, and stay connected to Zodiac Wisdom, where we return not to fear, but to clarity, compassion, and conscious power. The plans once made for you have dissolved. The story belongs to you again. And this time, Sagittarius, you will write it with eyes open, heart steady, and soul free.